Hey, hello again, everyone. Welcome to another live stream from Silver Bullion Television, SBTV, part of the outreach program here at Silver Bullion, where we want to help you truly secure your wealth. It's all about systemic wealth protection, as a lot of you folks know what's going on out there. Quick shout out, Seymour Rivers. How you doing? I'm looking forward to this live episode. Yeah, Seymour, this one is going to be. It's really a continuation from what we've had for the past week or two, where we saw these hearings continue up on the hill with Congress, and then what we're seeing is this blame game sort of going on. But the end result, what we are seeing is banks, and I think it's even going to roll over into businesses where they're going to realize, hey, wait a minute. I think we need to all come under this umbrella of being too big to fail. So you can really see how this is going to be the trend. And I'm going to pull up a couple articles for you from here in Asia, even in Asia, to let you kind of keep you abreast of what's going on. So we'll take a look at that. Before that, we'll take a look at a few clips from the Director T interview over in Sri Lanka. And of course, we'll go head on over to Silver Bullion .com.sg, our website. So Seymour Rivers, how you doing? Pedro S, CM, Niels, Han, Dynasty, how you doing? Peter Frowine, yes, how are you doing? We are now on the it will not end well path. Buckle up, absolutely buckle up. It's going to be a very rough ride. I'd have to agree with that. Things are definitely getting more rough. Definitely more rough. So I'll be with you guys shortly. 5 more seconds or so, and then we'll go ahead and get this started. Thanks for being here. So hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Silver Bullion Television SBTV. I am your host, Patrick Vieira. So thank you for being here. We are part of the outreach team. You can always find us on social media at silverbullion.com.sg, Facebook, Silver Bullion SG, Twitter at Silver Bullion PL, Instagram at Silver Bullion SG. Some of the photos are pretty good. You guys might want to take some of them. Audio only versions, bit.ly/SBTV iTunes and SBTV Spotify, and of course, Crisis Tracker. This is where you do want to go ahead and join our crisis tracker group, t.me/crisis tracker. Of course, Telegram is a free app, and some of the things that we looked at were gold, or GLD, I should say, versus physical gold, which is the better investment. Now, and this article is kind of old. I think it's one of the last posts, or one of the last posts that we put up on Telegram. It's pretty interesting when you look at the comparisons between the GLD and physical gold. So this article came out, I believe, in 2017, but it goes over the comparisons, and I think we all know them pretty well. But for guys who have been investing in GLD, this is something you definitely want to take a look at. Or for guys who are thinking of investing in gold and are looking at the differences between GLD and physical, I think this is a very good starting place. So this article came out from Forbes a few years back, GLD versus physical gold. So that's one of the articles came out on Crisis Tracker that we put forward to you. Another one, amateur Australian gold digger finds massive nugget. Some guys have all the luck out there. And another article we put out, this is pretty interesting. We may have to take a look at it in the upcoming week, where from the Straits Times here in Singapore, China, Brazil strike a deal to ditch the dollar. And this made some news. This was a follow up to Saudi Arabia being part of that, the SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization over in China. Saudi Arabia looks like taking another step forward with that. And right on the heels of that, this came out where China, Brazil strike a deal to ditch the dollar for trade. So these things all happening. Crisis Tracker, get that Telegram app. It's free, mobile or desktop. T.me/crisis tracker. And of course, just to stay in touch even more, join our email list, sbtv at silverbullion.com.sg. Subject, just type in mail list. We'll go over upcoming interviews that we have. You shoot us some questions that you may have so we can get them into our guests. We'll update you on the reserve, possibly the world's largest silver vault by capacity, being under renovation right now. We'll give you some insider info with that. Of course, we'll let you take a look at some promos that are going on, so it may help some of you as you're looking to try to upload your, or I should say, up the ante on your gold and silver. And of course, other things like how do you know that you truly own your gold and silver when you store them in a vault? How do you know that? How do you know that your gold and silver really is gold and silver when you store them in a vault? So things like that, we'll have links to all these other articles and videos. So again, always we have different ways to keep in touch. And what I want to do, this live stream, excuse me, again, we're going to go over some of the hearings that happened in Congress, where Congress is still trying to figure out what happened in the latest banking crisis, or they simply don't know. I mean, I happen to believe this is simply a dog and pony show for the American people, maybe even people all over the world. And it's just a way for Congress to say, hey, we're on it, when they really probably don't even care. And per usual, it was simply a blame game, as we'll see later on in an article from CNBC. So before that, excuse me, I want to head on over to our website, silverbullion.com.sg. Check out how gold and silver are doing this morning here in Asia. Then we're going to take a look at three clips from that Director T interview. So we'll get going with this. Before that, just let me know how the audio is coming in for you folks. CM, where can I get my own SBTV t-shirt? You know what? That's a good question. We thought about that before, but we weren't sure how many guys would really be interested in that. On the front, it says SBTV. I'll have to pull up I'll get another shirt event next time, maybe. And on the back, it has a picture of that saddle up and silver up logo, where there's actually a cowboy with his lasso, and he's on a bronco. So on the reverse, saddle up and silver up. So maybe, I mean, just if we get enough people interested, and then if it's not too expensive to ship and reasonable for you guys, I mean, maybe Vincent, Vincent, maybe we could consider doing this. So okay, so let's head on over to our website, silverbullion.com.sg, and see what's going on with gold and silver. Let me go ahead and refresh this. Uh, April promo, 15K silver bars, $1.30 over spot. The usual price is $1.90 over spot, so you're getting about a 60 cents per ounce savings there. Let me get back to that. That we'll touch on this. This looks like a pretty darn good deal. So silver, it went over that $24 per ounce mark last week, and then now it's back down 23.93. So sub 24 once again. Gold 1963 per ounce, 1,963 US dollars per ounce. So both metals a bit down. Both metals are a bit down. So let's see what's going to happen, because this crisis is definitely not over. That is for sure. But unfortunately, both metals are back down a bit. Silver to gold ratio is 82. We were below 82 over the weekend, but it's back at 82, as silver prices seem to be percentage wise falling a bit more than gold prices right now. What this means is it takes roughly 82 ounces of silver to equal 1 ounce of gold, price wise. Price wise. Okay, so always remember that it's price wise. It doesn't take into account premiums, mainly because premiums can vary wherever you are. Each dealer may have may have a different premium from one another, but if you just look at it price wise, we're at about 82 ounces of silver equals 1 ounce of gold. Featured products, again, Britannias are doing pretty good. Maples always do well. These LDMA bars, they do very well also. But let me get back up to here, where we have this promo going on. So you guys who are storing with us, definitely you want to jump on this. And if you're in Singapore, go ahead and come down to our shop as well or place that order online. So let me go ahead and take a look at it. So 12,175 USD. That's pretty good. That is very good. So in the shop, excuse me, we have 9 bars. 9 bars ready to go with your name on it. You buy it, you own it, it's yours. 61 bars in the vault ready for you to buy. You buy it, you own it, it is yours. So this is a pretty darn good deal. April promo, definitely not an April Fool's. April Fool's is over. This is the real deal. So if you want to take advantage of this, of course, sign up as a Silver Bullion user. 6 types of accounts: personal, joint, trust, joint account with the minor. This is a good one. Joint account with the minor, business account, and of course, retirement accounts. I've been talking about how important it is if you have a self directed IRA or look into a self directed IRA and into a precious metals IRA. You can just simply click up here and we can go ahead and help get you started with some info. Let me there you go. We can help you get started with it, point you in the right directions for it. But again, with the accounts, the easiest one is going to be that personal account. That will be the easiest account to go ahead and open up. So all you'd want to do is sign up as a Silver Bullion user, click on personal account, and really it's just basic information, just some type of an ID so we know who you are. Passport's probably the best ID to have. And then fill out that application. We'll go over it, make sure everything is all neat and tidy, and then please do this. It helps us out. How did you find out about us? SBTV. This one really helps us. So I do hope that we see more of you guys uh, signing up for these accounts. And I do hope that we can absolutely help you truly secure your wealth. That's probably never been a more important time, more important time than now. All right, so moving on. 3 snippets from Director T in our past Sri Lanka interview. Let me take a look at the comments here for now before we move on. Um, let's see. Marlo, first time I've seen you here. Welcome aboard. Yes, if you are new, type in new and where you're from, and we'll see if we can go ahead and acknowledge you. Yes, they said the Titanic was unsinkable. Kind of reminds me of Janet Yellen saying never again in our lifetime. Anyway, let's see. James Richter, how you doing? Rod Panhard, Pablo Pina. Glad to see all of you guys back again. Vincent chiming in. Hello, everyone. Paul, I am too big to fail. Absolutely. You know, Paul, this is what it's all about. We are seeing this trend where banks, and I do believe it's going to roll over into businesses, you know, having to become too big to fail, and that leaves you and me. We also have to become too big to fail. That's really the end message in all of this. You kind of ended the show for me. Maybe we could wrap it up already. But again, yes, please do join our Crisis Tracker Telegram group. So let's head on over to these 3 snippets from Director T.
I think it'll get back for the next 2 years. We'll see some stability. The reason for that, the IMF wants to give the loans because at one time, was it 2018 or 2019, Sri Lanka was the #1 tourist market in the world. And so they're trying to achieve that back, and the IMF is going to do their best to restore that. But due to corruption, what you and I would call corruption, and most people would call corruption, when money like that comes in, there are government officials who will take 1 or 2% of what comes in and line their pockets. And so when we consider that, we see no change of that being resolved, the corruption as it was in times past. And so I think 2 years could be a stretch before we enter another major crisis like we've just come out of.
All right, Director T over in Sri Lanka. He is a U.S. citizen. He's been living in Sri Lanka for some 30 years or so. So he does really have a good vibe of what's going on. Deep connections in Sri Lanka that help him. Anyway, the IMF giving Sri Lanka loans. How that is going to play out is anyone's guess. We know what happens when when IMF gets involved, but let's hope for the best with Sri Lanka. Corruption will still exist, is what he is saying. He's given it maybe 2 years or so to kind of smooth over and get better, or it may not. It may not. So this next 2 years are going to be pretty critical for Sri Lanka, and it is critical because some of the things that Sri Lanka is doing you can there's a parallel path with what many other countries are doing. So it's important to pay attention to what's going on there. Will Sri Lanka rebound? We have yet to see. I guess we'll know in about 2 years. And he also mentioned that who's going to have the most influence in Sri Lanka? China, U.S., India, and between those three, he did say U.S. is having very, very little influence. The influence is going to either come from India or China, really. So that was pretty interesting what he had to say there. Let me throw this out there: 4-9 massive cuts in oil production. Okay, I'll take a look at that through the week. Announced by OPEC, oil surges to over $80. That is interesting because when I was taking a look at oil, when uh, when the U.S. was oil independent, okay, when just a few years back, it did. You go through the news articles, it did seem like Saudi Arabia was very upset because the US was their biggest oil consumer, their biggest oil buyer. Saudi Arabia was pretty upset with that, and then China stepped in to fill the void, and it's part of the reason why I guess part of the reason why we're seeing this turnaround where Saudi Arabia and China are getting stronger in their ties. And the suspicion is this is why the US stopped being an oil producer to try and make amends with Saudi Arabia, which put pressure on the people. And now, if we're taking a look at this, where OPEC's going to cut production, uh, we always seem to say this, but countries like the U.S. they're going to be in a bit of trouble now. Looking forward with this, so this geopolitical game never ending. Anyway, another clip from Director T.
The former government, one of the reasons they were ousted is because they tried to go green, and they immediately canceled for the farmers' decision. So we lost a whole year's crop in Sri Lanka over the fear that if we didn't go green, we wouldn't have the backing of the UN or another country. And immediately we lost power. We went to 3 to 5 hour power cuts because the fuel generators weren't being supplied by diesel. And because the one coal plant that we do have, environmentalist groups would not allow the coal to be shipped in. And so it hammered the economy so bad. So I see that internationally, especially in America, using the same things, curtailing fossil fuel oils and going to solar panels and going to other forms of what they call energy. These are destructive to the environment. And to me, it's a religious cult, the environment. And what we saw in Sri Lanka is happening in America. They were not able to sustain the loss that they had.
All right, so former government, excuse me, former Sri Lankan government tried to go green. Uh, Otherwise, low green backing. You're not going to get the backing of other nations if you don't go green. Environmentalists caused the country power issues. Excuse me, and this is well noted. We saw things with the fertilizer. We saw things with the soil. What had happened there as the country tried to go green. Their economy got hammered. Sri Lankan economy got hammered. And so what we had talked about in this interview is America on the same path? I mean, going green, there's nothing wrong with, keeping the environment clean, cleaning up after yourself, picking up after yourself, leaving a place better than when you first found it. Nothing wrong with that at all. But I think it's more, the agenda. People do seem to be split, absolutely divided on it, um, for various reasons. But what say you? What say you? One more clip from Director T.
There's no doubt in my mind that America is on a massive decline. And regarding Sri Lanka, it's also on a massive decline. I believe to the point where there will not be a rebound. We're going to have to consolidate with other countries, much like the European Union did. America, I believe, to stay solvent one day, may even have to join an entity somewhat like the European Union just to stay solvent. I believe the decline is that massive. But in Sri Lanka, they're definitely going to either have to let India overtake them and be part of the Indian economy or just the overall Asian economy by way of China. I believe the decline is that serious.
All right. US on massive decline. What say you? What do you think about this? Is it on your meter? Is the US getting worse or is the US getting better? Where is your meter pointing? In fact, even your home country, are things getting better or are things getting worse? So where is your needle on this? There will not be a rebound, is what he is saying. That rebound is going to be tough when you got a lot of that overhead going on. Everybody's going to want a piece. Everybody's going to want a piece of your prosperity on your rebound on the way up. So then you're looking at consolidation. Consolidation. So what say you? Do you think uh maybe the US is going to have to join some type of a union? Do you think that that's going to happen? I mean, they've always talked about the North American Union for some time, but it does seem like Central American or even South American countries with Brazil, their deal with China, they have their own mind. These countries have their own mind. They're going to have to do what is best for them. Uh, Maybe Big Brother to the north didn't take care of them as best as they could. Maybe they were sanctioned too many times. Whatever it is, maybe they're printing too much money, and that's what they're seeing. So they're looking to make a move. But nonetheless, what say you? What say you? All right, topic of the day, the hearing on the Hill and the too big to fail trend. It is a trend. I do believe it is a trend. So Congress wants to know why or how we had trouble in the banking system. And that, my friend, deserves a big Greg Mannarino duh. A big duh. What is there to know, Congress? What is there to know? But yet you want to go and give us this show that you're really trying to solve a problem that maybe you are a big part of. Anyway, per usual, it was simply a blame game, as we see in this article here from CNBC. Let me pull this up here. Let me just get to the top here, where bank stocks fall after top regulators back stricter regulations. Remember, we talked about this last week. Regulations at high profile Senate hearing on the collapse of SVB. So here's a few photos from that meeting. So let me just get into what really happened there. So the Fed, with its back to the wall, came out swinging by saying fundamentally the bank, Silicon Valley Bank, failed because its management failed to appropriately address clear interest rate hikes and clear liquidity risks. So essentially, the Fed takes no blame whatsoever. And I think this came from one of their. Let me just quickly check here. It was one of their vice. If I could find it, I think Michael Barr was his name. Yeah. So anyway, this is coming from the Fed. Michael Barr, I believe was his name. So essentially, the Fed took no blame whatsoever. I mean, never mind we printed all this money. Never mind we've been doing QE since 2010, 11. Never mind any of these things. Hey, it's not our fault. We warned all of you we were going to raise rates. Now it's in your court. What are you going to do? Because if you have all these treasuries, these bonds, if we raise rates, the value of your bond is going to go down. So the Fed kind of telegraphed, yes, they did telegraph what they were going to do, but they were a lot of the cause, a big part of the cause of what had happened here. But the Fed takes no blame whatsoever. So what do you think? How much blame for what we see today is the Fed accountable for? True, SVB and every bank, every investor did know the Fed would be raising rates. Therefore, we have to take responsibility ourselves as well. Some of that's on us. Some of that is on us. But how much blame does the Fed take? How much blame should the Fed take? Let me take a look at some comments here. Um, let's see. Okay, I guess you guys are doing okay. Let's see, what is this? Marlow, Paris is a riot at the moment. Still, okay. I didn't check this morning what's going on there in Paris, but I do believe they were rioting because of they're going to be required to work longer before they can go ahead and take their pensions. I believe something like that. I think Macron added 2 more years of work life before you could go ahead and get your retirement or something like that. So let me know. Let me know what it's about. What's going on there? Okay, so how much blame actually goes to the Fed? And the other key point was when Senator Brown said it may be tempting to look at all this and say we don't need new rules, that the real problem was these arrogant executives. But there will always be arrogant executives, and that's exactly why we need strong rules. Remember, we talked about this last week where, you're going to see regulation taking out perhaps the smaller banks, the community banks, maybe even the regional banks. So we touched on this last week. That's why somehow this turned into a continuation from what we saw last week. But regulation is what he's talking about. And again, we spoke about this last week. You are going to see banks, businesses either get taken over, which we saw, or regulated out of business. Is this a good thing where the Fed and not the market decides? Is this a good thing? Well, we go back to last week again. Remember, Saleh Almarova from last week, we pointed out the plan for the government through the Fed, where it is to replace the free market in setting, or what she wanted was the Fed to replace the free market in setting of the systematically important prices for things like food, wages, and energy. She went on to say what you will about the old USSR, but there was no gender pay gap there, and the market does not always know best. Is this where we're headed? This is centralized form of government. Is this where we're headed? You tell me. But this is what she said. This is the blueprint she laid out. This is the blueprint that they still have, and it looks to be the blueprint that may be followed. So, from this hearing, there were 6 key points according to our friends at CNN. All right, so let's take a look at those 6 key points from CNN. Let me go back up here. 6 takeaways from the Senate hearing on recent bank failures. All right. So what do we have here? Silicon Valley Bank customers. Uh, New details that emerged underscore the enormity of the bank run at Silicon Valley Bank as it became the second largest bank failure in American history. Panicked customers attempted to withdraw a staggering 100 billion from the bank on the day the tech lender was shut down by regulators. So, one thing is a bank run. Another thing, mismanagement led to SVB's failures. I want to ask you a question though. If you see your bank going down in that way, are you going to go down and pull out your money? Would you do that? I'm curious. Would you do that or would you hang on? But point number two, there were mismanagement that led to SVB's failure. Barr also detailed how SVB leadership failed to effectively manage interest rates and the risk of running out of cash. That part is hard to argue because the Fed did telegraph what they were going to do. So Barr has a point there, but Barr doesn't blame the Fed. He never even takes a look at the Fed. So he says SVB's failure is a textbook case of mismanagement. The Fed official pointed out that SVB's belated effort to fix its balance sheet only made matters worse. And we're going to hold the Fed to this word here, balance sheet, because we're going to take a look at that Fed balance sheet in a minute. The bank waited too long to address its problems. So that's what they said. Well, a lot of people say the Fed waited too long to react as well. Anyway, point three, regulators say the banks are safe. How much do you believe that? Are the banks safe? Banking system is sound and resilient with strong capital and liquidity, is what they are saying. Well, isn't the Fed trying to open up the spigot and push out liquidity all over the place once again? But here we're being told our banking system is sound and resilient with strong capital and liquidity. We are committed to ensuring that all deposits are safe. This word all, I think, is a word that is said pretty loosely, ensuring that all deposits are safe. We will continue to closely monitor conditions in the banking system and are prepared to use all of our tools for any size institution as needed. Now, remember what we went over last week, where it's really going to be a board, a board of the FDIC, a board of the Fed, and then Janet Yellen's uh, approval of sorts that then goes to the president to get his approval of sorts. There needs to be a super majority going on, and then they'll decide if we will bail out this bank or not, picking winners and losers or choosing winners and losers again. So, that part there, uh, where it says that all deposits are safe, it's really at their discretion. It's at their discretion. More regulation is needed. We went over this last week how we were gonna see this come into play. Executives at SVB took wild risks. What did they do? They bought treasuries. They took a wild risk by buying longer term treasuries. Wow. Okay. And must be held their exploding accountable for exploding their banks, Warren said, Elizabeth Warren. But let's be clear, these collapses also represent a massive failure in supervision over our nation's banks. All right, so the government and Congress want to keep an eye on banks. Why aren't these guys the ones also driving the nation into debt? I mean, what are they gonna do? Keep an eye on a bank and make sure they're doing things right and clean, and at the same time driving the country into more and more debt? Really? Okay, all right. I don't know. I mean, maybe they're having too much Fruit Loops for breakfast, if you ask me. Uh, all three federal regulators called to testify agreed with Warren that the government needs to strengthen the rules for banks to help prevent future bank collapses. So there we go again. Regulate some out of business. Consolidation. Bank executives could land in trouble. Recent Securities and Exchange Commission filings also show that former SVB CEO Greg Becker sold more than 2 million in bank stocks in late February. So, maybe he kind of, had too much headwind and said, things aren't looking good. Maybe I'm going to have to sell off some of this stock here. And this is not unusual. You see this over and over again where the top brass in the company, they will go ahead and start to sell off stocks. More hearings are coming. It'll continue with its own hearings will continue, and it's not likely to be the last as lawmakers contemplate and debate potential changes to finance regulation and supervision. Didn't we go through this how many times already? Regulation with Glass Steagall, which was then taken away, and then we had Dodd Frank, which is so many loopholes that these guys, they're just basically dancing all around them. Too many loopholes, even with Dodd Frank, and yet they want more regulation. They want more regulation. Why? Is it really for the banks? I mean, is it for you and me, or is it where they regulate smaller guys out of business and their cronies, their big buddy friends? They can go ahead and get more business by eliminating business. Is that what's really going on? I mean, despite the blame game, we continue to see how the Fed is growing their balance sheet. And I talked about this. They want to blame SVB, their balance sheet. Well, what about the Fed? The Fed is growing their balance sheet in an effort to keep liquidity and credit flowing. Essentially, it's injecting money into the system. They're on emergency mode. The Fed is on emergency mode, and I'll go ahead and take a look at that balance sheet. Uh, when you take a look at it here, you can see from 2008 all this QE, all this QE happening. All right, went up, spiked up during the years of the bug, continued to go up, and now they're trying to taper down. They are trying to taper down. So this is the tail end. Let me blow this up a bit so we can see what's happening. So the Fed was trying to take care of that massive balance sheet. So here we can see when it's coming down, and now we see it spiking up again on the tail end. We see it spiking up on the tail end again, and the Fed is really trying to get more money back into the system, and let's just wait and see how they're going to try and burn it off. But as far as talking about a balance sheet, I mean, just look at the Feds. I mean, it's just massive from 2008, massive, 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 and at the same time, you know, it's trying to slow the velocity of money, meaning it is raising rates, or part of it, meaning they're trying to raise rates to slow down the economy to so-called fight this inflation. And I'll take a look at this here, where the federal funds rate, we know we just raised it. It's at 4.5 to 5.0%. And we can see here last time it only got up to about some 2 point, right about 2.5%, and the wheels fell off. The wheels fell off back down to zero, low to zero rates. And now here we are with the Fed trying to push up rates again. And they're almost at the point where they were back in 2007, 2008. And we know what happened. We know what happened then. The wheels fell off, crashed and burned. Here we are again. We're seeing the same type of scenario, same type of setup. Not only is the Fed raising rates to slow the economy down, it's also trying to burn money out of the system. So again, another thing that the Fed tries to do, we take a look at the money supply, and we can see how, once upon a time in 1970, when there was a gold window and that dollar was linked to gold, you can see how the money supply was fairly reasonable. It did grow, but not to where or how it grew after 71, when it was removed from gold. You can see that money supply just shoot up, and you can see where it went in 2020, just off the charts, basically off the charts. So tail end there, they're trying to burn it off, tapering. They're trying to burn some of that money off. But the thing is, in this effort to slow down the economy, they want to slow down your spending. And this can be said as they want to slow down the velocity of money. However, when I look at the velocity of money, you look at the tail end of this velocity of money, you actually see that the velocity of money actually picked up. So let me pull up this chart, last chart. So you can see where velocity of money went down. It's been going down ever since 97. It's been going down, took a crash here 2020, but it's been going back up. Okay, and this is the cause of why they say we have inflation. There's too much money chasing too many goods. Velocity of money is too great. You and I are spending too much money, and when we take a look at that tail end there, it's just going up. So maybe we'll have to wait for new numbers coming in. First quarter numbers come out this year. When it does, it should start to turn downwards, and this should tell us that spending has slowed, and therefore inflation should come down more. So, I mean, all this is just to say the Fed is blaming everyone else, uh, except themselves, and this is something that doesn't really sit well with a lot of us here. So let me take a look at a few comments here before we move on. Um, let's see, Peter Frowine, when the BRICS goes to a gold backed currency, that will be the death of the US dollar. It's picking up pace, Peter. I agree with that. It is picking up pace where, they liken it to when you have a bathtub full of water, you open up the drain. In the beginning, you don't notice that water going down, but towards the end, it picks up pace and moves pretty quick. So when you look at things with like with what Saudi Arabia is doing, the economic interest uh, that they have in unison with China, with what China has. When you look at countries de-dollarizing and all of these things, uh, that water in the end of the bathtub is starting to move pretty quick. If you ask me, it's starting to move pretty quick there. Thing is, if this happens where the Fed does get inflation under control and inflation comes down, higher prices are going to remain. And this is called disinflation. So they may tell us one day, hey, inflation is 4%, 3%. But I guarantee you, you go to the grocery store, those prices did not come down. Disinflation only means the rate of inflation has stopped, or maybe in some cases slowed or reversed. That's all disinflation is. It doesn't mean that prices came back down to what they once were.
We can now say, I think, for the first time, that the disinflationary process has started. We can see that, and we see it really in goods prices so far. Goods prices is a big sector. This is what we thought would happen since the very beginning, and now here it is actually happening, and for the reasons we thought. It's supply chains, it's shortages, and it's demand revolving back towards services. So this is a good thing. This is a good thing.
All right. So Powell had mentioned that word disinflation a while back. Says it's a good thing. It's a good thing for him where, he can say, hey, look at this. We're controlling inflation. Inflation is slowing down or stopping, whatever it may be. But for you and I, we're still going to pay these elevated prices. Okay. So, I mean, really, what does the Fed then do? I mean, does the Fed continue to raise rates and try to bring inflation down, which is their goal? And further, the risk of slowing the economy too much, where liquidity and credit dries up, which is what we're seeing. And as such, businesses, they're going to fold, they're going to merge. You may lose your job. Are we going to see these things start to sell off? Businesses start to sell off assets. We did see that before. Are they going to sell off assets, perhaps even at a loss? Or does the Fed go back to creating money out of thin air, reliquefying everything to keep everything afloat and reignite inflation at the same time, where that velocity of money starts another uptick? This uncertainty of I'm going to call it a lose lose situation the Fed has backed itself into, I believe, is going to continue because banks and businesses, they're scrambling. They're going to scramble and they're going to look to become a too big to fail entity. Now, look at a couple of these articles. This is from Asia. So I want you to see what's going on in this part of the world from Asia or Nikkei Asia. South Korea's biggest bank targets India and Indonesia for deals. Okay, well, why? KB Financial, South Korea's largest banking group, is looking to take advantage of the recent financial market turmoil. The recent turmoil by making overseas acquisitions in countries like India and Indonesia. Okay, let me show you another one. Philippine President Marcos aims to merge two state banks. Move would create country's biggest lender by assets amid global turmoil. So this is the ripple effect that we are seeing in even in places like Asia. This ripple effect where banks understand they need to become too big to fail. So Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has agreed to merge the country's two main state lenders to create a stronger government bank amid turmoil. There's that word again, turmoil overseas. Combining the Land Bank of the Philippines and the Development Bank of the Philippines will create the country's largest lender by assets, eclipsing BDO, Unibank. These are other banks in the Philippines. A unit of conglomerate SM Investments, he said. So you see how even in Asia, I mean, they're looking at, we saw what happened with Credit Suisse and UBS. It's happening in Asia. They're out shopping, trying to acquire banks, and there are banks also looking to fall under some kind of an umbrella. They want to be a too big to fail entity. This is, I don't know, this is the new drug that the Fed is giving out, where if you become a too big to fail entity, we're going to agree to make you whole if anything should go wrong, and you'll be fine. Well, where does that leave the community banks? Where does that leave regional banks? Anyway, regarding this Philippine merging of Land Bank and the Development Bank of Philippines, we did have a voice come out and say something. So I want to go over to this article here where Hontiveros, she's another politician in the Philippines. She warns that the Development Bank of the Philippines Land Bank merger could result in too big to fail bank, which is the plan. This is what they are trying to do. So the minority leader Risa Hontiveros last week warned against the proposed merger of the Land Bank of Philippines and Development Bank of Philippines, saying it could result in a financial entity that is too big to fail. She did say that the government must proceed cautiously and prudently as the merger would create the largest bank in the country, adding that one of the lessons from the 2008 global financial crisis is large banks are riskier and they tend to introduce more systemic risk into the financial system. And again, we know what happened with UBS and Credit Suisse. So here we go, the ripple effect. We are seeing it here in Asia. You're going to see it more in Europe. You're going to see it in the US. This is what's happening. It's too big to fail is going to be a trend. Let me take a look at a few comments here. Let's see. Um, okay, hang on. Okay, I just want to Joe DiLiberto, yes, and the Fed. Let's see. If you believe Paul, I bet you watch the news medias. All right. Yeah, I'm looking at the comments. I can see that a lot of you guys are spot on. You absolutely are aware of what's going on. That's great. But I think it's not going to stop at banks. I think this will spill over into other businesses as well. Maybe airlines or maybe oil companies. I mean, if we're already looking at, as someone mentioned, price of oil moving again, does that mean oil companies as well may have to become a too big to fail entity? Who knows? Maybe food companies. We all know the issues that food companies have had processing plants where a lot of them seriously had events. Uh, Maybe they're going to have to try and merge up or well, I don't know. Who knows? I mean, it's just that you can see this trend already where you have to have that cover of being too big to fail, and it's a trend. I think that's just going to continue to roll. Uh, so everyone today, right now in this world, seems to need to be too big to fail. Eventually, our choices they're whittling away. Where yes, the bigs get bigger and they get too big to fail.
A few moments later.
The Fed works for big, rich banks that want to get bigger and want to get richer. And then everyone else pays the price for diminished competition, for worse service, for higher prices, for employee layoffs, for the risk that we have yet another too big to fail bank on our hands.
All right. Are we heading to a day where customer service will mean you, the customer? Hey, you serve us. You serve the big business. So you tell me, how about us? How do we become too big to fail? On a personal level, you already know what I'm going to say. Get yourself some gold, get yourself some silver. It's an investment, it's an insurance. Have one foot in the current financial system, have one foot out of the current financial system. So that was really it. That was really the message. How this really is a continuation of what we saw last week with the live stream of how banks are even more than banks. They're going to look to become too big to fail entities. The ripple effect has crossed the ocean. It's even here in Asia. So I've showed you how even banks in the Philippines and South Korea, they're looking to get bigger, looking to get bigger. I'm sure it's going to circle back around to Europe, even to the US. So you tell me what do you think about all of this? Rolf Steiner, the US national debt has to grow to 100 trillion as the US empire implodes. 100 trillion, my friend. We're what, a third of the way there, and we've got this many problems. Well, I'd sure hate to see if it ever got to 100 trillion. That's for sure. Yeah, Miguel Del Morillo. Absolutely. Sorting through the lies is getting more difficult. I think the harder part in sorting through the lies is when you try to take some of these pieces at face value, but you realize there's so many layers underneath that you have to peel off and take a look at. That's the hard part. That I mean, there was a day you could absolutely depend on what you were hearing, and now you just can't. You really have to do your own work out there. Let's see what else is out there. Um, let's see. Bill Wood, I've talked about this before. If Washington and London manage to get the world all blown to hell, does SBTV have a shortwave frequency? I am on 40 meters now, and Europe is wide open. I brought this up to the guys before, like those old style ham radios. You think we'll ever get to that point where we may need to communicate shortwave, or whatever it is? Just, hey, that's a good question. I've brought it up before. Okay, good to know it's not just me. We got at least two crazies out there, right? And I say that with love. All right, that's a good point there. Um, let's see. Rod Panhard, too big to fail. Risk off for everyone. Take as many risky gambles as you like because you won't have to suffer any consequences. You will be bailed out if you get it wrong. Rod, absolutely. That's where it's headed to. This is what banks are seeing. The Fed has enabled this, and they're going to go with it. I mean, why wouldn't you? You're going to go with it. Do whatever you want to do. Take some risky, shots here and there. And then, hey, if worse gets to worse, hey, Fed's going to bail us out. This is very dangerous. It goes back to MMT. Like I said last week, you could smell MMT being baked in the cake. You could smell UBI being baked in the cake. Um, it's just a different day, my friend. Things have definitely changed. Uh, the resistance to debt has to constantly compound or the system ceases to function. Absolutely true. It's a debt-based system. We have to keep creating debt. And so it just baffles me where you have everyone trying to blame each other for not being fiscally responsible, but it goes all the way to the top. Yet you want to blame the guy at the bottom of the totem pole. Excuse me there, politically correctness, right? But you want to blame the guy at the bottom when it goes all the way up to the top. So it's just amazing. Rome 2.0 follows. We're there. I mean, we're definitely on that path. We're definitely on that path. Let's see, John Bethea. I wanted to get 2,000 out of the ATM, but it only let me get 1,000. I have my limit set to 3.5. I don't know what this was about. So you're saying you're seeing ATM limits? I mean, the ATM is limiting you, even though you have personal limits that are above what the ATM is giving. Any other guys got see that going on? That's pretty interesting to know. Let's see. Carlos, my major bank is not showing large transactions since Friday. Okay, well, what's that about? These are okay. These are new to me. Uh, Comments are great. Again, guys, your comments are important because no matter what I say, it doesn't hold as much weight as what you say. And there are a lot of people right now looking at gold and silver, trying to understand it, trying to see where it fits in as far as wealth protection. So it's important where your comments they mean quite a bit to these people as we try to help them. Even here at Silver Bullion, where we do specialize in wealth protection, systemic wealth protection. I mean, we've seen what's been going on for quite some time, same as you. But for the new guys, if you need a way to protect your wealth, you understand what's going on, you're starting to put the pieces together. Send us an email, sales@silverbullion.com.sg, or you can email me personally, Patrick@silverbullion.com.sg. And just have a chat. Let's just have a chat. Let's see what might fit your needs. We can talk about the different products that we have, whether it might be diversifying your locations. I mean, your assets by location, maybe overseas. What does a place like Singapore have to offer you? What are the benefits? um Different levels, people have different levels of needs that fit what they want. So I mean, you can contact me personally, Patrick at silverbullion.com.sg, and we can go over it. Um so okay, I do appreciate the comments here. Let's see, Carlos, just to follow, my mortgage lender cleared my Friday payment 100%. My major bank has not even listed entry. Well, all right. Maybe it's a early bank holiday for them. Who knows? But guys, I appreciate your comments. I appreciate you being here with us. It means a lot. If you can, always, please do subscribe. Hit that bell to be notified whenever we put new content up, and thumbs ups are always appreciated. So with that, hang in there. Hang in there. As I say, the storm right now we're in. Some of you guys have yachts. You did well. You have yachts. Some of us, like me, just got a canoe. But we're all in this storm together. We're going to get through it together. You know, we are going to get through this together. We have ideas, solutions, what we can do. Stick together. Like I said, contact me if you need to. Contact Silver Bullion if you need to, and we'll discuss the different things that we have that can fit your needs. But having said all that, be a blessing. Be a blessing, not a burden. We got a lot of people to help. We have a lot of people we need to help. We have a lot of people we need to reach out to. So be a blessing, not a burden. And as always, saddle up for what's coming ahead, silver up as well. I'll see you guys next week. Take care.